closet that you did a really cool closet.
Yeah, I know.
So handy.
That's weird. Like, share.
Did you see what she did? Yeah.
Can see the screen now, correct? Hello?
Hi.
Okay, you can see the screen?
Yes. She's really cute.
I know.
Do something. Pictures of me as a baby. So
Maybe
did you say your name is Jim Harris? Harrison. Harris. And
I'm gonna go over here so we can go next for you guys when you need. There's no clicker. So the mouse?
We'll have it.
Oh, that's good. I'll do the
Sorry.
keys. Okay.
That's what that was what I called the clicker.
The clicker.
You can go have these two.
All right.
I mean, I guess we're gonna get started. So my name is Tim Harrison. I work for Cornerstone Home Lending, and I work a lot with Monica Minnick and the people down in Lake Arrowhead. And I've been doing business for 30 years. So because I have an office in both Blue Jay and over in Upland, I do a lot of business where people are buying second homes up here, investments or whatever else. So been doing business up here for quite some time. Met Jim at the award ceremony. And so he invited me to come and talk to you guys and just sort of introduce myself. If you wonder how it's like to work with me, you can talk to Monica Minnick. My team I'd like to introduce is Kara. She's business development. So she goes around and smiles and looks prettier than me, which is a really easy, as you can tell, for her. Leslie Magadoro, who's been with me for about 21 years, and I mentored him he's on my production team. So we kind of work as a team. So if one person is not available, the other there's no, like, it's always a team. So if you call Leslie or Cody, which is Cody here, he can always start a loan application, get the person pre-approved or whatever else. So we have somebody kind of available almost 24/7 because he gets up early and I stay up really late. So I'm sort of the night owl. Allison is out of our, you guys know, Allison's actually works for Keller Williams in Lake Arrowhead and also works for me at the mortgage office in Blue Jay. So I have somebody who's in the office for when people need to bring documents and that kind of stuff. So my history is I've been coming up here since I was a kid in Lake Arrowhead. My dad worked, it was called, I think it was Huntington or something like that, which was the office up in Lake Arrowhead. So he was a commercial real estate. His daddy was a residential real estate guy. So we've been coming up to Lake Arrowhead or hanging out there for a long time. Bought my house in Lake Arrowhead in 2004. And so I put an office up in Lake Arrowhead because when my wife retires this summer, I want to spend a hell of a lot more time up the hill than down the hill. So because it's a hell of a lot prettier, and as they know, I need a little bit of that zen relaxation that I don't get down the hill. So a little bit about Cornerstone, and you can click it. We're a nationwide company. We're fairly big and $1 billion a month in production. So I sort of run a branch that's over 500,000 clients since we started in 1988. And we are pretty much family owned. So it's one of the largest mortgage companies that's family owned. And so they are rated amongst some of the highest levels of Glassdoor for working there. They're rated as the #1 financial institution for mortgage companies to work for and to work with, and they're #5 of all financial companies in the basic nation on these different ratings. So they do a really good job of taking care of their people, their clients. They do like everybody at that company. When you talk to them, and I only moved there about 4 years ago, so Broadview Mortgage for 21 years. I moved over there. It was so amazing how everybody that says, you guys are the ones that brings us the business. Like we're talking about underwriters and funders and all that kind of stuff. So the attitude is just amazing for the service. Real quick, just so you guys know, because everybody wants to know this question, I have mountain appraisers. So we have a mountain appraiser list. We manage our own appraisal company. So we don't go out to a third party company that assigns an appraiser. Our company manages our own appraisers.
Wow.
And so that means that we actually only, when we order an appraisal in Big Bear or Arrowhead, Crestline, whatever, those appraisers are specific to the mountain areas. They don't come up the hill and try to do the comps up here. Because I'll send you the list. I'll send it to you all. So, and if anybody you see, hey, we would like to add these people, it's very easy for me to say, add these people. As long as they get us the stuff, we can add them. Because again, it's our appraisal management company. So if you see somebody that isn't on our list, just let us know.
As
It's-
part of your appraiser criteria, having membership in a local MLS,
Yes,
the bigger.
they're up here. Right, yeah. They are up here. In fact, they opened up Arrowhead, so you guys didn't get opened up, huh? Because
No, we're not open to,
you're still closed
we're not sharing,
data. Smart.
I don't know that it's smart, but that's what we're doing right now.
Well, Arrowhead changed.
We're getting many- we're
There's
not-
there's still a lot that we see through CRMLS with Big Bears. Every once in a while, I'll see a listing in my Big Bear MLS that wasn't over in CRMLS. So it's not uncommon anymore. It's more common that they're progressing to put it out there.
Can you turn up the volume on that?
Yeah.
I didn't hear what she said. Is that
That's all the way, yeah.
Yeah.
Basically saying she's very few times when she sees something listed on the Big Bear deal, it's not in the CRMLS anymore. That
Yeah, I know,
everybody's
that's
kind of
why it's even
graduating
more
towards it.
critical that we haven't shared yet, but.
Right, yeah, but I mean, I'm assuming that the appraisers that are living in the mountains and appraising in the mountains, every one of them have always had the access to those, so into both. But that's, you know, we can always ask the question, but I haven't had
It's not
them
your
not.
company, Tim, but what we see a lot
I
is,
know,
oh yeah, no, I know the mountains. I know the mountains. I used to have a cabin in Cedar
no, yeah,
when I was a kid. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, that doesn't have anything to do with Big Bear,
no,
you
Yeah.
know? And so,
no, Monica can pretty much, I mean, because we've done deals in Big Bear and everywhere else. I
I've
don't
never
think
had
she's
any
had a problem with appraisals.
with it, with
Yeah.
you guys, I just was curious.
Yeah, just, nope, we should, and if we do, if we don't, then you know what, you tell us and we say we'll add those people on the list.
Good.
So you tell me you want these 2 or 3 appraisers, I like to have 3 or 4 backups. Because, you all know it, it's mountain time, right? Sometimes they're just like, you gotta go through 3 of them to get somebody that's gonna actually respond quickly, especially when we were busy, it was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I mean, I was just paying through the nose just to get somebody to respond so that I could get quick turnaround times. But if I have to pay through the nose and get it done, I'll get it done and I'll eat the difference. I don't care. I want to get that appraisal in quickly and get moving on the file. We are very quick on getting our stuff done. So the appraisal department, I worked for a company between Broadview sort of sold out or closed out and went to a different company, and they had a third-party appraisal management company. It was the worst freaking 6 months of my life. In the 30 years I've been in the mortgages, I'll never ever work for a company that doesn't own their own appraisal management company. Ever. Go ahead. So that, I mean, allows us to quick turnaround time. So that's enough about us. I'm gonna pepper this with a little bit about us and a little bit about stuff that I think might help you guys in education and stuff. So this is a chart we use. The bottom, the dark blue is actual interest rates. So when everybody's talking about how high interest rates are, this is a 45-year look and average on it. So it gives you a new perspective. Orange line or red on colored line is actual values. So you can see gray lines in the back are actual recessions. And you can see that prices of houses don't always go down in recessions. They've actually gone down 2 of the last 5 times. So that means they're actually more likely to still go up during a recession than down. Why is that? Because what we found in the pandemic, low interest rates really make people want to buy. So it doesn't necessarily mean the value is going down because the interest rate of the cost goes down so much that what their payments are means that the prices can still go up. So even if we go into a recession, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to look at lower values. Next slide. The reason why is because so many people who have financing have interest rates that are very low because they have been able to go out there and redo the interest rates during the worst pandemic in 100 years. And those 100-year averages allowed them to bring down their payments. And so people who would have maybe had to sell their houses when things got tough up here or had to move now are handcuffed to their houses. This is the Wall Street Journal article that basically says, look, people aren't want to go out of their houses anymore because if they try to trade up or trade down, even trading down, because of the interest rate differential, they're not really saving much in payment. So a lot of listings are going to be harder to get for a long time. You guys are a little bit more fortunate in the mountains because there's a little bit more turnover than say down the hill where people stay for a long time. But this is a sheet that basically shows 72% of borrowers are under, and again, this is as of like last year, 2022, obviously that started changing a little bit as in the interest rates people are getting are higher on new purchases. But this, and we'll send you this, they have the slide, by the way, they have it all, the deck. 72% of people are under 4%. 55% are under 3.5%. Remember, we're at like 6.5% range right now, 6.5. 34% are at 3% or lower.
Wow.
So that means people are gonna want to stay in their houses longer because even, you know, any move is a significant change. And the next chart, I think, we'll see if it's right. Yeah. So for those of you that can't see this, I should have worn my glasses. But for example, at a $550,000 price, that's $2469.75 in principal and interest. And let's say at the 6.5%, see if I can follow it over 550, it's going to be $3467. So we're basically $1,000 more for a $550,000 mortgage at 6.5 versus the 3.5% that we were selling just last 2022 for the first quarter, right? So you're talking about $1,000 difference. That puts a little bit of a gimp in your stride. So that's why we're seeing it a little tougher for people to qualify. Our debt ratio is getting pushed. People are a little bit more apprehensive. And so what I'm going to say is our interest rates are not going to be here as, you know, forever. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be looking at what am I going to do when rates dip? Well, one, the inventory is still going to be tight. But when rates dip, that means we're going to be having a lot of offers like we did in 2020, 2021 during the pandemic. And it's going to be really hard for people to buy. Our recommendation is buy the house now, refi later, because the fact of the matter is you're not going to have a lot of choices when rates dip. And when people can all of a sudden save $1,000, let's say we get back to 3.5, let's say we can get to 4, and that's $700 difference. There's going to be a hell of a lot more buyers out there to buy those houses. And again, the inventory is going to stay tight. So talking to them about buying now and refinancing later is what we've been doing. And we did that last year and people all thought we're nuts, and now all of a sudden prices getting pushed up again with more buy sides and such. So it's just a little bit more pressure, and you guys have been, I think sort of retarded in the recovery right here because of the snow getting up here, that people are just now finally getting up to the mountains and they look at it and say that's something they want to do. And probably you're gonna have more listings because some people are gonna want to do the massive repairs that might have been happening because of the snow stuff, which I've seen all over in Arrowhead. Next one. So this is real quick, something that I don't like to bring you, but I have to bring you, and this is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's new loan level price adjustment. A lot of news about it all being subsidizing the people with poor credit scores and everything. It's a little bit of that, but a very small portion of that. Basically, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac realigned where risk is. So they were charging people with lower credit scores, they were just hammering. Okay. And they found out that the default ratios aren't that great. And so they can't keep hammering. They have to realign these things every once in a while because they have to be fair because they're government. They did put a little bit of less hits on those lower FICO scores. So people with lower FICO scores now have improved sometimes like 2 points in fee, which is almost a quarter to half in rate. The thing that I don't want to bring you the news on is the fact that they absolutely, as you well know, in the past, about a year ago, they hammered the second homes and investment properties. They basically said so many people are Airbnb second homes that they're going to be treating them like investment because they think the risk is the same as if it's not the roof over your head, you're very likely to walk from that. In fact, charge rents on that to pay your owner occupied. So the risk has always been higher on investment properties. But now they used to say, well, if you can qualify for a second home with your income, then you're not likely to need that income. So you will be able to keep that second home. The default ratio was really low. But you had all these people starting to Airbnb and short-term rental with them that they were relying on that income. And so when it stops, they are defaulting at a higher rate. So that got hammered, and this May 1st hit made it even worse on second homes and investment properties, unfortunately. So we look for alternatives like credit unions and that kind of thing, trying to put 25% down versus 20%, you know, versus the minimum downs and stuff like that. And that helps, but unfortunately, it's going to make it tougher in this kind of area for second home and investment properties. The good news is if somebody comes in talking about buying a second home and they can't really qualify for both, now if we flip to investment property, then we could use rents to qualify, which will at least make it easier for them to qualify because they're probably going to rent it anyway at some point in time. So at least if the pricing is almost the same, then you might as well talk to them about writing it up as a second investment property versus a second home. It's going to be easier to qualify with use of rents. Make sense?
Can you talk a little bit more
Yeah.
about this and
So,
the two
yeah.
sides of the conversation? Like
Awesome.
I heard two very different stories about.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of articles that we could share with you. Leslie looked them up and everything else. There is a little bit about that, but it is a lot of just, like everything, it's a lot of politics is what they're trying to make the administration look bad or whatever else, but it is some of that. But not much of that. There's 29 states or something that are suing for it. But it really has to come down to some statistical probabilities of default versus not default. So if you look at it,
Well, the people with low
grain-
credit scores haven't been defaulting because the property prices have been going up,
correct,
right? And
And
during
that-
the pandemic, prices soared, so.
right, so they're not gonna
That's why
default,
they're not defaulting, but there's still junk in the secondary market.
correct. So the idea is that the number of people that default, and I don't know if you just saw, but in the Wall Street Journal, they made, it was reported today, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac made their, I think it was just Fannie Mae maybe. One of them, I just read in the Wall Street Journal, so it's like 3.4 billion in the first quarter. Remember, when they bought these things because they had to come in and rescue from when the government, back in 2010, 11, they now own a very valuable piece because servicing on all these mortgages, remember the 77% of foreign, that servicing income is great. They're making a lot of money on that kind of stuff. So the fact of the matter is that it's a fairly profitable entity now. And hey, our tax system is built that, right? The poor don't pay as many tax that much as taxes as you go up in middle income. If you guys in 2020, 2021, I'm sure you noticed this. You paid a lot more in taxes. So this is the same kind of thing. They're subsidizing on the lower side a little bit, but most of it, they say, is based on actual risk factors that they have to do studies on. That's what they're saying. This chart here, the darker green is the point improvement, not rate, the points. Every 1 point is equivalent to a quarter better in rate on a normal basis. It's even more now because the yield curve's inverted. So these loans that we're doing now aren't worth crap on the secondary markets because they don't expect them to be around for more than 1 to 2 years. They expect them to be paid off so quickly that nobody wants to pay anything for that servicing income, which we always use for lender credit, rebate, no point loans and stuff. So now if somebody pays a point, they can probably break even with 2.5 years versus the normal 5-year break even for a point because they're actually paying for some of that the market wouldn't get. So right now, as the yield curve starts to flatten out and we get control of inflation, what's going to happen is you'll see long-term rates go down because those long-term investors want to jump in before the market goes too far down in interest rates. So when you start seeing that they feel inflation is in control, you'll start seeing 30-year bonds and stuff come down much quicker than you expect, but even faster than the short-term rates, because those long-term those investors are buying these mortgage-backed securities, which is a lot of retirement accounts and all that kind of stuff, are going to want to jump on that very quickly because they know when it starts going down, it's going to go down, and they can no longer get that 5.5%. If they wait, they're going to get 4.5%. And so they'll push that long-term curve down. This is basically where you see some improvements in price. So when they said, oh, all the we ruined all the higher credit scores and all that kind of stuff in the deal, that green is a 0.625 pickup, which is about an 1/8 to a quarter in rate for the higher FICO scores. Our bucket before was only 740 and no higher. So now we have a 740 to 759 score, we have a 760 to 779 score, and we have a 780 FICO score. These are like the jumbo loans. The more walk-on water you get, the better rates you get because your risk is almost like it. FICO scores predict default like you wouldn't believe. So the higher the FICO score, it's like a 1 billionth chance of you actually defaulting. Regardless of equity, regardless of that stuff, it's that you are so anal about your credit that you are going to suffer and pay that mortgage. So if you look at it, look at this, as high loan to value, somebody's trying to buy first-time home up here. They're going to live up here now. You got 5% down. They got a basically a 0.625% improvement. That's that's like $625 every 100,000. It's a pretty good amount of money. So they had improvements here. The red is where they started taking things away. So what they found out is that at the 740 to 759, so they took, that's the red, that's where they are hitting you for 3/4 of a point. And the reason being is they don't trust the private mortgage insurance companies to be there when they default. And that's really what covers those areas. When you're looking at 80 to 85%, if you have a 10% move in market, you have them not paying for a year, and then you pay 6% to sell the property, even at 20% down, you're basically at even when a mortgage company's thinking about that. Because they look at, hey, if it's a recession, it's a down market, we're looking at 10% off, right? We're gonna 10% prices from the highs. Absolutely. 6% to sell. And again, most people don't pay their mortgages for 6 months before they actually take over those properties or short sell. So you add that up and that 20% is gone. So everybody thinking, oh, 20% is a lot down. Not in the investor's eyes who think about the risk on this other side. So which is kind of funny, but we're actually more covered with when you're getting to your 90%, you see the hits less because the mortgage insurance at least will cover some of that. We're actually less covered at the 75 to 80% than we are because the mortgage insurance companies cover up to 25% loss. Government comes up to almost 30%. That's why these, yeah.
Oh, help me out. This is a total just basic question that I'm
Yeah.
not sure about. That far right column.
Yep.
That represents somebody putting 3% down and borrowing 90%, 97%.
Correct.
So they
These
get,
are 97. These are LTVs on the top. Loans
so
to
they
values.
get better loan level price adjustments the more they borrow.
The more they borrow, but remember, it's improvement over what it was. They were getting paid before.
Oh, that's
They
why
were getting-
that's the improvement. That's
The improvement over. So these people with these lower FICO scores, like in this range here, the 660, 670 FICO scores, there was like a 3-point hit before. All they did was improve it by 1.25. So they were hitting them way harder than they had to hit them.
So
But
that
they
chart
were
is the delta. That's the
That's the
change from what
delta.
it used to be.
correct.
Okay.
Change from what it used to be. So what they said is, look, these risky areas, the 80 to 85%, where we have very little mortgage insurance coverage, is going to be worse because that's where we're seeing potential for defaults and mortgage insurance companies not being there. As you get into the higher LTVs, they can bring them down because at least they have some mortgage insurance coverage. But if you only have a little bit of mortgage insurance coverage and the market moves, because with 15% down, your mortgage insurance is almost nothing, especially if you have higher FICO score. So the one thing to remember is mortgage insurance companies didn't do this. The higher your FICO score, the way better your mortgage insurance is. So that chart goes to show you, though, these people, it's not that they were giving favors. This is a misinterpretation by the news. It's that they were getting head caved.
Got it.
Like, I mean, you look at the hits for second homes and investment properties, like what, 3 points now? It's like 3 freaking points. 3 points. It's a 3/4 increase in rate. 1 point every quarter in rate. So they're getting hit hard. That's why, a lot of people, we want them like, yeah, if you're spending half time up here and half time down there, that's right, you're owner occupying this property because the hit's going to be too severe. Like, get a thing that says you can work remote, and you know what? At least in the beginning, you're spending more time up there than you are done down there because it's significant price changes. And next thing I want to get through some of this. So, what do we talk about? How do we get people off the fence? We don't do price reductions. We say, seller, we want you to pay for a 2-1 buy down or a 1-1 buy down or a 1-0 buy down. We'll go over that in a second because it's less expensive. Reduction in price, if you've got the competitive market, you have a lot of houses come on the market because again, people are going to sell or whatever else, or they're not getting the same Airbnb they did during the pandemic. And the comps are going to be there, or you could support it. You're better off to ask a seller for a buy down to get your buyer to buy now, because in 2 years, I'll be able to refinance them back to those lower rates. So it gives them that stopgap in between. Again, if they can get that lower rate, it motivates them to move forward. So this is an example right here, and this is on a $600,000 loan, and it's 13 grand for seller credit. So instead of going down 13,000, but now my payment goes from a monthly payment of 44.53, even at 6%, and that's like looking good if we're at second homes and investment properties, right? But it'll take it down all the way down to $3,700. So it's a huge difference when somebody's looking at a house and saying, hey, can I afford this? And if I can gradually get into it, if I know that my student loan is going to be paid off, I know my car is going to be paid off, I know I'm going to make more money in the next 2 years, I can make that leap now versus later, right? Because I can go, like, I can grow into that. That's not a problem. I know I'm getting these people buying these second homes or investment properties, their first primary residences, their first purchase, they're always at that level where their income is going up, right? Because they're at that growth stage of their career. So a lot of times they can fathom that, they can manage things to do it. So even if rates are gonna be the 6%. At least I can prepare for that payment if I can't refinance. The likelihood is, I've been doing this for 30 years, I can refinance people every 5 years to a better rate than what they got. Next.
Question.
Yep.
At one point, I had a lender tell me, that,
201.
like, we had to put this language, or we had to get the buyer to put this language in the purchase.
30 is
The seller
6%.
to pay for a buy down credit because
That
like,
is the
for a second home, that it was like predatory lending at some point, like the cost of the loan was so high that
Yeah.
it like literally didn't fit into the
I know
guidelines.
exactly what you're talking about, because it happened to us. It was probably us that told you that.
No, it was another lender.
It was it was up in Green Valley where we had this. We had to try to tug in that. They actually didn't accept the first deal because they thought the lender was full of crap. So here's what happens. Those LLPAs, go back 2 screens. Just hit the backward. So these are the LLPAs, loan level price adjusters. So we have your best credit score, your 780, you're putting 40% down, you walk on water, you're wonderful, you're buying a primary residence, you get the rate that everybody advertises. Right? Nobody else gets that rate. And there are very few and far between, but that's what everybody's advertising. Now you throw into there, we've got a 720 FICO score instead of 780. We've got a second home versus an investment property and a lower purchase price. What happens is that the stupidity of our government doesn't let the LLPAs be part of the calculation to the maximum amount of points an originator can charge. So what happens is that we get in there and we have a 3.5 point hit for the second home for the LLPAs, the loan level price adjusters, Fannie, Freddie, Mac. And then they say, well, you can't charge over 3 points. They already charged 3 points, they charged it. So now I hit the maximum that I'm allowed to charge before I'm a predatory lender. But it's not me getting the money, it's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, because it's a riskier loan, in their opinion. They're charging it, but they don't subtract that from the formula. It's the simplest thing in the world. So what happens is we have to go and say, they're not allowed to pay it, it can't affect their APR, so we have to ask your seller to pay it. So you gotta push the price and get them to pay it in those instances, and you're gonna run into more of that with lower priced properties and the new hits as of May 1st. So when they come and they say, we gotta have, it's not because they're trying to gouge the lender's not trying to gouge, they can't, the loan I was doing, that you handle it, $4,000 we had to get the seller to pay, or we would lose money on the loan.
Right, so
I would have to pay a point to buy their loan.
So what language, if you were coaching the listing agent to coach the buyer's agent, let's say that everybody agreed to do this.
Yep.
What language would you want in the purchase?
X number of dollars paid by seller and closing costs.
Say that.
Never ever
Say that
X
again.
number of dollars paid in closing costs for the borrower by the seller. Never use it, never use non-recurring, never use the terms recurring, because then we can apply it to prepaids and all that kind of stuff if we want to. So every time you just be very generic, seller to pay X number of dollars of closing costs for the buyer. That's it. Because now I can apply it to prepaid taxes, homeowners insurance, closing costs, points. I can apply it to the whole kit and caboodle at that point, anything I want. So if I have $10,000 and you tell me that you're gonna apply, you write it up that you're gonna pay $10,000 to non-recurring closing costs, and I have $12,000 with prepaids and all that kind of stuff, I can only cover the $10,000 towards recurring closing, so the non-recurring closing costs, lender title, escrow, appraisal. Right, those are
Are
the
all closing
non-recurring.
costs classified as either recurring or non-recurring?
Correct.
So you could say recurring and non-recurring.
You can if you want,
But
but if
don't-
you
that's
just say
extra
closing
language,
costs,
you don't need it.
don't need it. This is more, yeah, this is just for closing costs.
We've even had it to where the seller ended up paying for appraisals and home inspections with a generic term, right?
Yep. Whatever you want, they can even be reimbursed for it, the money's there.
Right.
Because otherwise they overpay for the property because they didn't get the closing costs back, and then of course buyers get really pissed off. Because they're like, wait a minute, where's my money that I pushed the price by 12 grand and now I can only use 7 because I'm not paying points, and they go, oh, well, let's go back and pay points, so let's do this. And what they're really looking for is the money back in the pocket, especially if there's repairs, to do the repairs.
Right.
So that's the whole reason though for it. I go through.
Just want to see if you could say the verbiage one more time.
Yeah, so basically, all you want to do is say, seller to pay X number of dollars in buyer's closing costs.
You just have to make sure with the lender that that falls within the range that they're able to.
So just so you know,
It's
it's pretty high. 3% on anything that's 10% or less down, right? 3% closing costs, is that 5%? At 3%, 6% anytime you get above 10% down.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of freaking money.
Yeah.
You can pay a lot of money. So it's not, usually your seller's not gonna wanna pay what we can max out on. And by the way, FHA, 3.5% down, 6%. Seller can pay 6% on an FHA. So the only thing that I think, and I'm pretty sure it's 10%, Cody will look it up and let me know on his phone. I'm pretty sure it's, you can pay 3% up to 10% down. But you can't, but there is a limitation on investment properties, which is, I think, like 2%. So there's an added
And
restriction
second
on
homes
two.
as well.
I don't think it's on second homes. I think it's only on investment. properties.
Mostly what we sell is second homes
Correct.
and investment properties.
Correct. Yeah,
So
so
this
I,
only, what you just said only applies to primary residence.
the 3%. And the 10 and the 6% primary residence. I believe it applies equally to the second home. And then it's 2% on investment properties. But we can look that up. I mean, but normally you're not gonna hit it.
So ask your lender before you write that.
Yeah, before you write the offer, just go, hey, how much can we get in closing costs? And usually we know because we've already looked at their cash. When we do a loan, we've got a DU, we run the full deal. We know where their cash to close is coming from. We know what they need closing costs, and we're instructing you, they need X number of dollars in closing costs. So we're already telling
Pretty much need
you
to
what.
talk to them anyway, if you're gonna do a 2-1 buy down or 3-2-1 or 2-1-1.
Correct.
You gotta figure out what the amount is actually for this client.
Correct.
Because it varies.
So 30 years in the mortgage business, finance degree, I thought I knew my shit. And then I didn't know about buy downs because I hadn't done a buy down in freaking 15 years. So all of a sudden I find out there's different buy downs than the 3-2-1 because it's too damn expensive. If you look up here, it's $23,915 on a $528,000 loan amount, $660,000 purchase price. Hard to get a seller to pay that $23,000. So you're going like a 3-2-1, yeah, that's. And probably your buyer doesn't need that to get motivated. 2-1s where you start talking 12,163, know what their closing costs, they come up the rest. Now we buy down that interest rate and the payments come significantly different, 34.24 versus 27.54. That's motivating. But let's say the seller's not gonna pay that. That's okay. What about, this is where I started getting educated. Guess what? There's a 1-1 buy down. Buy the rate down for 2 years by 1%. 1-1. Buy it down 1 first year, 1 the second year. So if I'm at a 6.5, I'm now at a 5.5. And if your seller's advertising that they can get you a 1% below the market by paying $12,000, that makes that house a lot more sellable. And you're probably gonna get the extra price anyway, because more buyers are gonna come to the house and more buyers are gonna be willing to do that because they're gonna have subsidized.
Oh, you will.
Then there's the 1-0. Now it's only $4,120 and I can buy down your interest rate for the first year. So while you're getting up here, you're furnishing the second home, you're getting that investment property, you're getting it going, you're getting the rents going. I can subsidize you by a 1% the first year, and it's only $4,128 or $4,120 on a $528,000 loan.
The one caveat is that the buyer still has to qualify for the long-term payment.
Correct. They have to qualify for the note rate. Unless we get the damn yield curve to go. But when the yield curve flips over finally, when they get control of the short-term inflation, then we'll go back to, you know, the one thing missing from this market that's made this market so hard for us that we didn't have in previous, and it just dawned on me the other day, is we have not had the semi-fixed arms because they're worse than the 30-year fixed because of the inverted yield curve. So the 5-1s, the 7-1s, the 10-1s we rely on getting us through this period. This is why the buy downs have become so popular, because we don't have that product because of the inverted yield curves. Once that happens, those 7-1s, well, now there's 7-6s. They actually change rates every 6 months because they don't have the 1-year change in most of the loans. But on jumbo products, which we had them for a while, they're not there. The 30-year fixed product, I mean, it's just better price, or it's not even worth it usually. So once that comes back, we'll have a lot better pricing on that 7-1 and stuff like that, which will really help people a lot because we can just get a half point better in rate on those than on the 30-year fixed. But because right now the long-term expects rates to settle down, they know they're going to settle down. That's why they're still competitive with the other market. So this is a really good, and this is again, you have the deck on this. I don't know why I call it deck, but the PowerPoint. So that is going to give you something that's going to come up in the future. So I wrote a book about 15 years ago. That was a lot for people to take, and it was really like chapter by chapter. What is mortgage insurance? What is this? What is that? For people to get educated on. Now we have sort of, what do you call it, Carrot podcast? Podcasts or videos and stuff like that. I do a really good job, and I don't usually say that about myself because I hate freaking being on the video. I do a really good job of explaining all the different types of buy downs and how they work. The 2-1 buy down, the 3-2-1 buy down, the comparison versus doing a price reduction, and it's like $80 to do a price reduction to save $12,000 right on the 2-1 buy down, but it's like a $400 difference in payment. So, and I explain that, so you can share those with buyers. When you see them on the fence, you can say, what about if we tried to do this? Can I get you off the fence now who want to buy if we can negotiate this with the seller? At least you get them looking, and of course, then their eyes go sparkly when they see the house and the views, and the blah, blah, right? But that first is you get them out there. So that is the chart I use in explaining in the video, and it's easy to share. It's most of the stuff is done as straight up mortgage talk, which was what the book name was. And I don't think it's like even branded to us as Cornerstone or anything. It's really to help you sell, even if you're using a different realtor, doesn't hire a loan officer. Okay. Next.
So I have a question. So your jumbos are still a better rate than conventional, right?
Getting a little bit better with the banking problems
And are you
because they're
guys-
worried about their deposits
And
now.
I'm not trying to throw you under the bus or anything,
No.
but are you guys able to compete with, relationship stuff from?
Nobody is.
Like Wells,
If you have $1 million in the bank, right, $2-3 million in the bank, and you're going to Wells, you're gonna get shitty service still, because it doesn't matter what your relationship is,
Right.
but you will get a great rate. And what I do is I look, I go, let me compare. And a lot of times, those kinds of people who have that kind of money are still choosing service over rate, if it's not that much different, because they want to be treated right, and then they call their personal banker, and then they funnel them off to somebody else because they don't do the personal bankers don't do the mortgages, and they fill them off to somebody who's not calling them back and not getting back to them. They get so frustrated, they still go with us because we're responding and talking to them. They can actually get something.
Can I
But yeah,
mention,
you've got money in the bank.
can I mention one thing?
Yeah.
So I have a client that I'm doing through Tim, where they're coming back up to look at a property. They're $4 million, they're putting 50% down. They're attorneys for the movie industry. They rather go with Tim than with their personal bankers. The other thing with Tim, everything is done in-house from beginning to end. I'm not having to call New York to some underwriter or go to Georgia to see where my loan docs are, or Texas to see what the hell the processor said. I don't have to do everything is in-house. So anytime anything happens, I can go right to Tim and they can tell me exactly where we're at that loan. And I don't have to sit here and freak out.
Yeah, but again, sometimes it's like, dude, I tell them, here it is. This is the price. You gotta close on time. If you think you can get the extensions and stuff like that. But a lot of times it's like, I need to close fast. I can't get that from my bank. I need the service or whatever else, but yeah, if you've got money in the bank, and here's why. Understand the logic of this, this is where my answer helps. If I'm a bank, for every $1,000 I have in deposits, I get to loan out 10 times that amount. If you have $1 million in my bank, I can loan out $10 million because of your money. If you get pissed off and pull out because my rate's not more competitive, guess what? That 10 million goes. What happens when deposits leave banks? We've seen it on the news. Correct.
because they're over leveraged.
Correct. So is it better for me, who's, by the way, you're asking for $1 million loan, you got 10 million, you got $1 million in our bank, which means we can loan out $10 million. I'm only loaning you $1 million. I have still the other $9 million I get to loan out because of your 1 million that I can make on it money on. So what is it better? It's better for me to subsidize your rate, ain't it? Can't compete with that. But a lot of times, because the banks all of a sudden want to get out of the market, which they're likely to start doing now because of the risk of deposits and things like that, they might. Very few people, except the ones buying Lakeview up here, have that personal banking relationship. Because now they're pulling money out of the banks because they weren't paying them crap, and they're going to money markets and other things with their financial investors, like I did. I don't have my money in my bank. Now I have my brother, a money market might get 4.8%. Why the hell would I leave it there where they're not going to pay me anything? This is why the banks are having the problems. They're moving their money out because they weren't paying. Now the banks are all of a sudden, oh, we'll do this at this rate. They're finally coming back to the market because they were ripping people off for so long and not paying them returns. That's why they run on banks, because you can make more money everywhere else. Not in stock, not in risky stuff. We're talking money market, liquid stuff.
Real
That's
estate.
4.5, 4.8%.
So I think the smart money is moving into real estate.
Always
That's
has.
As you get to inflation,
It's always has been.
inflation is way higher than they reported.
Well, that's my next, when I come back up here next time, I'll tell you about the investment properties I bought and how I made myself a couple of times over a millionaire because of the real estate I bought. It wasn't because of the money I made at my job. It was always the real estate. Everything I've made is in the net worth is in real estate. It's not very liquid. You can't spend it on my Ferrari that I don't have. It's there, I guess, if I ever sell it and don't have to pay 30 cents on the dollar in taxes. So that's, but again, you gotta pay capital gains on no matter what investment. You might as well get the one that's fun. I mean, my second home up in Arrowhead is paid for itself. I have an office up here. I can do that. I mean, it's literally about for 220,000. That's worth like 650 now. So if I look at it, I make money on my vacations. If I sold that property, I'm $200,000 up and I had a second home and it'll pay for the dock too. Ridiculous, but people don't get it. So what do? We talk to them about the 5.99%, the 6% rate, and then we talk to them about the 4%. And we say, look, you're gonna refinance in a year or two. I can't guarantee it, but I will tell you, I've been doing this every 5 years for people. We are pushing hard on inflation. I've been through this cycle 3 different times. The inflationary curve, when they're shortening that, with the raising the interest rates or bringing down long-term markets, never lasted longer than 2 years. Never. And we're getting very close to that. And they're already talking to the Wall Street Journal all day yesterday about this is potentially the last 0.25% move they would make. If that becomes the deal, they think the market's slowing down enough. First time, not a lot of job openings anymore like there used to be. All this stuff has had the effect on slowing down the economy that they had to have. Why do they have to do that? Because if they don't, and this everybody's like, why are they ruining it? The market, not so. Because if they don't, and inflation becomes too much of a problem, we've already seen how our dollars don't go that far. If you'd rather have 10% people being unemployed and hit a recession than have 100% of the people not being able to eat. Because we can subsidize those 10% or those 5%, but you can't subsidize everybody. Just look at Argentina and some of these other countries that have runaway inflation. That's why they have to just kick it at the knees. The Federal Reserve is doing their job. It's not fun, it's not pleasant, and it might put us in a recession, but they look at that as better than the alternative. Simple as that. Okay, so this shows you that they will save $714 on a $588,000 mortgage just by refinancing from 5.99 to 4%. So people are gonna be able to save significant money. If we do the 2-1 buy down and give them that bridge gap, they can go back to probably the same payment they're at, which is why there shows a 2% difference. And how many times have I been able to refinance people at 4%? Probably every 5 years.
And an important thing to tell your buyers is if the rates go down even sooner and you have to refi, the credit on there can be applied.
Correct. So 2-1 buy down. If you're a 3-2-1 buy down, you have money left over. It's just like an impound account for taxes and insurance. It's yours. You get to use it. Closing costs. You could take the money and add the closing costs if you wanted to. You could actually have it as part of your refund. Because that's like impound. Remember, that's like when we do want to do a rate term refinance for somebody, but we don't want them to have cash out because it's a higher fee. We fund a couple months mortgages, we fund their new impounds, they get all that stuff back. I'm like, look, you'll get the 10,000 to do your roof. When you skip the 2 mortgage payments, when you have your impounds back, you'll have enough money and it won't be deemed cash out where you're gonna have a quarter higher in interest rate or the loan to values don't get there, right? There's not enough equity position. So we can do rate and term refinances. And that's one of the things is we use that money either towards a closing cost, if the value's not there and we need it, or we let them get it back. We let them have a choice. All right, next screen. So this is cost of waiting. And a lot of people I started until I purchased this program, finance degree and all, I never really calculated. Like I knew it, but I had no way of demonstrating it. So this demonstrates a couple, 3 different things. Okay, first of all is I'm showing a measly 2% increase in values. Now that may or may not be happening. And I'm showing the same interest rate, which rates could go down, right? But I'm just saying across the board. What I was doing before was I was showing this with the 3.5% interest rates, with the likely rates going to 4.5% plus, and the cost of waiting is significant. Here's why. If your prices go up even by 2%, that means from 550, that goes to 561 second year. 2% increase. Pretty likely because of the inventory things that I've been talking about, right? Unless everybody bails out of their house up here because they don't want to deal with snow again. Where they think it's gonna be every year instead of every 25 years, okay? Now you go 2% increase again. We're now all of a sudden, second year, 572. Third year, 583,000. Because remember, it's 2% on top of 2%. And the reason that's 404%, right? Because the money you made the first year is making money. The money you made the second year is making money. So it's like compound interest, same kind of thing with real estate. Boom, boom, boom. That's only a 2% increase. Average in California is exceed from 1970 to now exceeds a 7.5% rate of return on a normal basis. You can't do this and think it's going to happen in 2 years, but you could sure as hell know it's going to be doing that over the long run because it has since 1972. Even when we think we're at highs, oh my God, we'll never exceed 2010 prices. Never. Flew by them, right? After a time of rebuilding, we flew by those prices. We're way above those now. So what's the other important factor? So we go next screen. Well, what's the cost of waiting? So I wait. Well, it's the extra down payment. That's putting 20% down. I had the extra down payment on that higher price. I also have the amortization loss, which people don't consider. I'm already starting to pay my mortgage off. So amortization alone in the first year was $4,918 that I've already paid off. So by the third year, I've got a $33,000 delta based on amortization, based on the extra down payment, and based on the appreciation loss. Now, let's say, oh, prices are going to go down. Well, they better go down at least by the amortization cost of $15,000. Because you're already $15,000 and you already have the house. And you're already 2 years, 3 years into paying it off. So it's really hard when you look at these and people want to keep waiting. It's like, well, do you really want to wait? Because the cost is going to go up on you. Unless you think price is going to go down by 10%. And good luck with everybody having sub 3.5% and 4% interest rates because they're holding on to those houses. Even that, this is the conversations I have with people. Well, I'm not letting go of this thing. I'm freaking holding on to this one and buying the next one. I'm renting this one out. I don't want to let go of it. I got this interest rate. They waited their entire lives to get that interest rate for the 100-year pandemic. They're holding on to it like it's their child. And I know because I don't ever want to touch ever again. Like you talk about me getting cash out to buy another rental. Hell no, I'm going to save it long term. I don't care what it is, but I'm not, because that's extra profit in my pocket. If I rent that house out, remember my property taxes don't go up. My property taxes are still based on what I purchased it for, but rent sure as hell have gone up. So they're holding on to it. But that cost of waiting, when you look at amortization and everything else, just the appreciation loss at 33. So it's $49,000 if you combine everything, amortization, appreciation, and extra down payment for that higher purchase price. And again, 2% increase. I'm not being super. If you look at the San Bernardino increases and expectations, Schiller, all those kinds of things, they're much higher than what I am. I'm trying to be real
Biggest way
conservative.
to get these people off the fence is just to remind them that they don't want to buy a property when their kids are in college. They want to buy a property while their kids are in elementary school.
Yep.
You know, we can't wait for the timing of the market. This is the time of your life when you want to enjoy the mountains. And that's because we're a resort community. But
Yeah,
what I'm saying
I
is,
get it.
you want to know these numbers, and you can also state, you know, so what is the real reason you want to buy? I
Yeah.
mean, it's not.
Because my
financial.
12-year-old kid doesn't want to have anything to do with me down the hill. They don't want to go to a movie theater. They don't even want me at the same movie theater. But God, it's amazing when we come up here how much time they want to spend. That's exactly why I bought my Arrowhead place. The only time I could get that kid to spend any time with me once he got into his teens was up in the mountains. We had quality time that's worth $1 million 10 times over. You're right. It's like, what about the snowboarding? What other? Well, you ain't gonna be able to do that when your kids are in college, first of all, because they was gonna talk to you about breaking your knee. Do it now. I mean, you know, I was able to ski with my kid, do all those. I still have skis. I saw after the first time he did snowboarding, he couldn't get up the next morning. He was in 6th grade and in thin and in shape and everything else. And he was so sore. He couldn't go to school. I surfed, I skateboarded. There's no way I'm snowboarding if that's how it's going to look on him. I said, I'll stay to skis because I could keep up with him. All right. So this is just does a little bit more. And this is like just the down payment increase requirement. So the first year, second year, third year, because of the 20%, the 2% increase in price. So you're already going to have to save another $7,000 in the third year just to buy the same house. So the other stuff is pretty much the same. What we do, one of the things about being part of a bigger company is that they have bigger buying power. And so things that I wasn't able to have before, I have now through our pricing engine. So as soon as somebody closes on a loan with us, we automatically set them up for when does it make sense to refinance, at what rate, the cost and where their break even is. We put them on rate watch the day after closing, the prices against my prices on their loan product and emails both of us if it potentially makes sense for the refinance for us to talk about. So as soon as it hits that point, and they know that when we talk to them, we say, we know that rates are higher now. We know that you bought this house because it was time for you to buy the house for family, for whatever reasons. But we are watching your rate every single day. The pricing engine prices it, and you will get this email saying it's time to talk about saving money. And by the way, we've set it to save you $500 a month. That's what makes sense. It breaks even within 12 to 24 months based on the cost. And we do it based on each loan amount because the larger loan amounts price break even a lot faster. Because you're talking about $3,500 to $4,000 hard cost on a refinance. Escrow's cheap, titles, redo, and then you got appraisals and sometimes not even appraisals anymore. So that break even's pretty quick. Larger the loan amount, bigger the savings, right? Based on the drop in interest rates, and so we set that every time. Right? Jim asked me to talk about a couple of like programs and stuff like that. So first thing is mortgage insurance, everybody knows on FHA went down, so it's actually pretty competitive. Lower FICO scores, first time home buyers could buy up here and live up here. It's a pretty good deal now because it's only a 0.5 factor versus used to be 0.85. And it's even lower if you're putting additional money down like 5 and 10%. So that mortgage insurance factor that used to be astronomical, you still have the 1.75 up front plus that, but that gets financed in, so people don't care. But the 0.55, bankruptcy 2 years, foreclosure 2 years, having bad credit scores don't really affect the pricing that much. The rates are still decent. Your mortgage insurance is much more reasonable than in the past, and it makes it more affordable. Again, that is something the administration stepped on. Why? Because they put so much money away into the big old fund, the mortgage insurance premium fund for charging mortgage insurance. That goes into a big pot for reverse mortgages, for first mortgages, all that goes in there and pays out defaults. With such a rapid increase in values, they're not going to have a lot of defaults. A lot of people refinance at the FHA. They're no longer a risk, but the money's still in the pot. So they were able to step on this. We were up at one time when it was high risk in 2010 to 1.25, 1.125 in monthly mortgage insurance because of the amount of making sure.
They said the other day
stay.
that they have 10% down with no mortgage insurance programs now.
That is a true and false statement at the same time. Self-insured. So there are 10% programs where they go out and buy the mortgage insurance. The problem with that is it's always in your rate forever. So anytime they say there's no mortgage insurance, they're stepping on the rate and then they're paying for the mortgage insurance. But what happens that people don't know is when you start to do like try to do streamline refinances, the values go down and stuff like that, they then still have to go back to the mortgage insurance company, the bank paid for it, to try to get their approval, and sometimes it won't happen, so they can't refinance and stuff, and they didn't even know they had mortgage insurance because they were advertised no mortgage insurance. Not a true statement. It's actually lender paid mortgage insurance by bumping the rate, and we can always do that. By the way, we can lender pay it up front. We can upfront pay the mortgage insurance. Seller can pay it, right? And with people with high FICO scores, you say, yeah, go ahead and put 15% down here. We'll have the seller pay the upfront mortgage insurance. It's done. $4 grand, we're done. You can split it. You can pay some upfront and some monthly to lower the monthly payment. There's all sorts of different options with mortgage insurance. Not on FHA, no choices. That's unconventional. The only one I've really truly seen, and again, the banks subsidize it on the rates, is Chase has a program, Jumbo Chase has a program with 15% down, but their reserve requirement is like 18 months of PITI in all properties in reserve. So it's pretty hefty, but that's the only one I've seen with that cheap at no mortgage insurance. So yeah, they advertise it that way and it gets them in trouble. So if you look at it closely, and if they're a big bank and stuff like that, they won't advertise no mortgage insurance. They'll reword it kind of a different way if they're trying to stay out of trouble. The other program we have, and we're one of the few companies that have this, is that again, primary occupation, all that kind of stuff. FHA, we have a down payment program for the 3.5% down. The seller can pay the closing costs. They can pretty much be in with no money down. So this is how it works. Really stepped on rate. If you want it forgiven after 10 years, if you want, I'm looking at Leslie because he studied this more than I did. If you get a 10-year note and you pay it off over 10 years, which is the preferred way, the rate's not that much higher. So it's a much better way to do it. So here's the deal. You got a first with a 97%, 96.5%. You got your FHA. You've got your 10-year loan on the 3.5%, which is, maybe $150 payment, but you can get that house now. If you find the house that you really want and you don't want to wait, instead of saving every month for the down payment and then prices go up, you can actually buy now and just pay it off as you're going. So it's actually a pretty decent program. No money evaporating, it doesn't go away. It's not like these CalHAPA funds that are there overnight and gone. It is replenishable because they're doing the loan that's getting paid back or forgiven after a long period of time.
Can I ask a
If
question? On the FHAs, when can a person have an appraisal done to remove the mortgage insurance?
Never.
Didn't it used to be if there was 25% equity that the mortgage insurance would go away?
After 5 years on FHA, now conventional is different. Anywhere from 2 to 5 years, you can petition to get rid of mortgage insurance with a new appraisal. It automatically goes away at 78% or 80%, depending on how it is, whether you paid it down. So if you pay it down or the reappraisal, get it, you can get rid of mortgage insurance on conventional. On FHA, you have it used to be until about 7 years ago, that after 5 years, you could actually petition to get rid of mortgage insurance. They got rid of that. So now you have to refinance out of it, which I used to say, this sucks. Don't go FHA because the mortgage insurance is 0.85 factor. We want to get you in a conventional so you can petition to get rid of mortgage insurance, whatever. But now rates are so high on FHA, it doesn't matter. We're refinancing them into a conventional, values go up anyway. So they're going to refinance anyway. So it's not that big a pain now for them to take an FHA, because when they refinance, we're going to bring them over to conventional anyway. And they're going to get rid of the mortgage insurance or have a lower mortgage insurance. Because remember, we can get like a 0.15 or 0.16 factor, even with 10 or 15% equity on a conventional and higher FICO scores. So before, like when rates were really low, I really didn't want people to use FHA because they're going to be stuck with the mortgage insurance and that low rate and just be like, crap, I'm stuck. And if you looked at it at a 0.85 factor, that was like saying I got a 3% interest rate, which was great. So I had a 3.85 rate. If you have the mortgage insurance, that's basically what it computes out to. So it was it's still better than what's available now. But I really tried to get them to go conventional so that they could actually petition to get rid of mortgage insurance. Right? Good question. And by the way, most lenders don't tell them that it's not going to go away. And so they go through this false thing. Right? They don't tell them that there's a second that they're going to have to, that on CalHAPA is going to come up and rear its ugly head at some point in time when they go to refinance or sell. And so they, instead of trying to save their own money, get the seller to pay closing costs, which would be better, push the price than have the CalHAPA or some of those down payment assistance programs. They just don't do it. So this is beautiful Monica, but I don't know why that covers her air blown look there. We really should get rid of that screen. So we can see that air blown look she's got. And it's really nice when I have my bald head right underneath it. So I think you can click on it, it goes away. All right, so these are, and again, this would probably be only on the CRLMLS versus their big radio. But any property you have listed, we can automatically do flyers. It takes whatever you've got in there. It takes the pictures you have in order, and it does the financing options for open houses, or if you want to put it out there so people actually know what these payments would look like. And of course, we usually show them as primary interest rates because of the payments. But if you want, we can show them on the second homes investments. Obviously, you don't know what they're doing, so you probably show them the lower payment start. But that gives you all the legal stuff. It gives you the rates. It's updated and it's fast. Allison, who's also working with Keller Williams and us, is actually the one who does all those, can print them, provide them, or send them to you or whatnot, so that and it's very fast. So you guys can have them at any time you need them. As soon as it hits the MLS, we have the access to it. Okay. Next, I told you I was going to pepper this. HomeBuy. Have you all heard of HomeBuy? Does anybody use it? So I have two things that have made me $1 million in commissions over the years. One is a magnet that has my business card and opens letters and sits on their fridge. One, it's a diet program for them. They open their letters and they see me every time they think about doing a mortgage. It has at least put $1 million in commissions in my life over the last 30 years. Stupidest thing in the world, but it's also the one that locks in and they can't get my business card out of it. Okay. But the second thing is HomeBuy. I don't say it's going to pay me $1 million in commission, but it will over time. Here's why. A third-party service with information about the value of the property that they have is automatically showing up to me. I've got every one of my clients that I close on. The realtors who finally realized that if they went with me on it, It's a $25 fee for them to have over 25 is free, by the way, you have 25 clients for free. Anything over 25 clients, you start paying for it. If you work with a lender on it, which means that they ask lender questions, it goes to a lender. If they work with you, if any questions that go for real estate, it goes to you, the real estate agent, so they can answer those questions. They get a report, it's backed by Black Knight, it's some of the most accurate information. Up here, it's not gonna be as accurate because it's the mountain area. They're gonna turn to you to know the true value of it. But at least they get something every month. It's not just, here's my recipe. It has a 97%.
You know, yeah.
Do not go away from it. They do not go away from it. They keep it on their deal and they open it and look at it. I have 10 properties on it. I look at every one of them every month. And that's why I signed up for it. So I have a big database of realtors I've worked with. I had them all signed up at HomeBot and I'm communicating with them and they're asking me about a freaking, CMA or what's my value. I'm like, I don't know, so I keep forwarding out the realtors. Finally, when the realtors signed up, everything that was in my database, that was their referral, went to them. Now the email comes from them, not me, saying that their value is just the realtor engaged with the client. The people who did this and signed up for it, that I've had working on it, and finally, like I tried to get them to do it, I tried to get them to finally get it. And they're coming up to me now and saying, that's the best thing we've done since sliced bread. We should have done this so long ago. I wish we would listen to you. HomeBot is a very valuable service. They'll do presentations, look at it. It is cheap for what they get. And they're not the Zillows and the Redfins who are trying to sell against you. They have committed to never doing that. And what it does is it keeps people off of Redfin and Zillow. That's the biggest value of it. Because what am I going to do if I want to know my value if it's not being pushed to me monthly? I'm thinking about selling or buying, and I go to Redfin or Zillow to see what my value is because they are so freaking good at marketing to me as soon as I click on that. Keeps them off of Zillow and Redfin. Because if I'm getting fed it, I know I'm getting my value, and then I'm clicking there, I'm not going there. And it's from my real estate agent, which means it has more credit. Okay, so that's my hot tip for the week. And it gives you a lot of information. What if you bought and sold? How much equity are you likely to have? What's the trend? All this kind of stuff. It gives them different options. What if I Airbnb'd it? What if I rented it and bought another one? It makes them think about buying versus the other services or anything else that I've seen. Keep going. We do reverse mortgages. I'm old enough now that I qualify for a top. So I've been doing reverse mortgage about 15, 20 years. I am sort of the regional expert for reverse mortgages for the Western region of the United States for Cornerstone. 50-55% down, people can have no payment for the rest of their life. If they're trying to stay in their home or whatever else, they can, again, primary residence only, 62 and older, they can not have a mortgage payment. They can even have, hey, they can't get repairs done up here, and they're complaining of the roof and the snow, but they don't own a mortgage, they get a reverse mortgage, never have to pay a mortgage payment, get that money out, do the repairs that they do, and even have an income stream or equity line, they don't pay interest on it until they pull the money. Which is a nice backup for some people who think they're might having health conditions and things that get going on. At least have a backup. Not the first mortgage I choose because it has got the upfront mortgage insurance and mortgage insurance because it is backed by FHA because you can live to 150 and never get kicked out of your house. Have to stay in the house you can't be out of the house for more than 12 months, can't turn it into rental, blah, blah, blah. Okay, there's some conditions, but I know about them if you have any questions. Credit claim. One of the biggest things I think that I've seen realtors make a mistake on right now is not databasing enough and not working on people's credit while interest rates are higher. This guy's the only guy I've trusted for 20 years. He only charges when he fixes it. He tells them what they can do up front and he tells them exactly the cost and he works his butt off and he knows the system. Don't have somebody try to clean their own credit because a lot of times they pay off crap they shouldn't have paid off and they anger the beast by making something that was getting old and about to fall off current, and it hits their credit scores. He knows how to tell them not to jack that up. And he tells them, pay these, don't pay those. Pay these, don't pay those. We get a credit report, we send it to him. He sends it to the client. This is what it costs each line to get rid of. These are I can't get, these I can get. This is what we're gonna do. We also have a system that once he does that, we can do what if scenarios that says, if you do these things, your score will go from here to here. It is very accurate. Somebody on my team, who's not here, Chris, my personal assistant, who handles it. She's very good at it and she's very meticulous and she likes it. But she'll send it to the client, say, this is what you do, this is where your score can get. Remember the hits differentials, right? For FICO scores, it's humongous, whether they can buy what rates they're gonna get, huge by credit scores. So those people right now, you're databasing, working with them on credit, having that conversation with them and preparing them if you can't get them off the fence. Remember, they're gonna wanna buy the only thing that's gonna impact rate when they come to buy is equity position and credit scores. The rest is timing, right? You can't do anything about, but you can do something about your credit scores. So, I have a podcast with him. If somebody wants to know about credit and stuff like that, instead of you trying to explain it, he is an expert on credit. That podcast in the top right corner explains it. If people want to know about appraisals and they go like, why am I having to pay $550 for an appraisal? Well, send them, my interview with an appraiser who's been appraising for 30, 35 years, Cheryl. She'll explain it. People, that's the most watched one there, believe it or not. What to do when adding to your home, what cost pictures, things like that. And then pretty much all those 2-1 buy downs, 3-2-1 buy downs explained. So if you want a crash course within 10 minutes on what the differences are in our buy downs, what are available, how they affect things, we use charts. I talk about it. You will understand whatever's there on the subject probably pretty thoroughly by the time you go through. I don't make them 30 seconds and all this fun. It is fact. It is showing you exactly what it is and it'll educate you. That's just kind of how I do it, but I'm not going to be entertained. Except some of the interviews are fun because I know these people for a long time. So just so you know, maybe you got a blender up here you're in love with. I get it. I appreciate loyalty. If they don't have a product, please turn to me. I would love to service you. But the fact of the matter is, I get loyalty. And I appreciate it. Realtor's been loyal to me for 25, 30 years. And so I really appreciate it. This is a little bit of news that sort of helps us. We bought a bank. We're one of the 2 mortgage companies in the United States that actually bought a bank. What does that mean? That means that we're now federally chartered, so I can go into all those states. So we can actually, I think we've actually picked up these states. This is an old map. So I think the only states we don't have is actually, we don't like New York. They were hard to do business in, so I don't think they're gonna do business. So but we're pretty much the entire, like, until you get to that little, we're there now. We just added a bunch of states, including Hawaii. So if your lenders are probably not licensed in all the states like we are because they don't own a bank and they probably haven't gone through all the licensing to get licensed. There's a lot of people that are going to move to Texas or wherever else, or Idaho or whatnot. Think of us because we can get them prepared before they go. Have a local office that they can go to and talk to us and that kind of stuff. And Blue Jay or come up here, and then we can still do business with you, even though you might have loyalty to a lender who is locally here. Okay. All right. This is my team. So you've got Cody and Leslie here. They're production partners. They can calculate loans. They can run through DU. They can do anything I can do, but faster because they're younger and they're faster in their sleeper. Period. So when we get a loan application, we have a very good system online for people to do the loan application online. If they don't like doing it online because they're older or they just don't want to do it online, they call the lovely Jenna. This is my niece. I call talking to Jenna like drinking honey. She is the sweetest thing ever. People love her and they're best friends with her by the time they get off the phone, and she gets them through the loan application throughout the process. And so Cody and Leslie usually pick it up then, do the income calculations, what kind of loan programs can we get, search different loan programs and all that. We present with what's called mortgage coach, and it gives them 4 or 5 different options, and it breaks down break evens, and everybody freaking loves it because it presents exactly what the payments are, what their taxes and insurance will be, has a detailed closing cost. We leave that with them. It's the link, and they can click and see the detailed closing costs. They can see break even. Like for now, if they pick points, what's my break even? It'll actually calculate all that for them. And we do it, we go over the phone with them. They don't have to come into our office, which they love because they can stay in their pajamas or whatever else. They can be one in traveling in Chicago and the other one here, and me at my computer desk, and I'm showing them because of the website on the screen while I talk about it and answer their questions. Okay. The processing team, go back. It's Allison. Allison helps us do verifications of employment and orders the appraisals. So she makes damn sure they're a mountain appraiser. That's her primary job. If they're up here, that they have to be a mountain appraiser. And if they come back with somebody who's not, she stops it and makes them reassign their mountain appraiser. But they haven't missed them lately, right? During the transition. Monica and Michelle. Monica's been with me 22 years processing my loans. Michelle's been with me about 12. So this is a very experienced team. And we're table funders. So when the docs go out, we're ready to fund. Fax them, scan them, get them to us, and we'll fund it. Done. So we have to have insurance in place. We have to have all CD corrections before the final docs go out because that loan wire is reserved ready to go. So I don't know if you've dealt with both, but they are, you cannot be changing things after the CD goes out. I mean, it's small act of God, we can do it, but please don't. Make sure we know about seller credits before. Okay. The final CD goes out with docs, we're funding. Literally, we'll fund that loan within 15 minutes, probably those docs being received and reviewed. And we do not need the originals back. Okay. Anything else? We done? Did I bore them enough? So I'm really proud of how we do, how well we do. And so this is the mountain list of companies and stuff like that. And we have a lot of great reviews. Clients like us. We do a good job. I didn't shy away from showing that Babadia does a pretty damn good job up here too, because he has some pretty damn good reviews. And so I got to give him credit. And the guy at PRMG for being up here, they have some really damn good reviews. So there is some good competition up here. And then as soon as we get into the banks, talk about the banks, you don't have ours from up down the hill, do you? So we do this with local competitors around our office. And the one down the hill is with Bank of America's and Chases and stuff. They're at 2s and 3s at best. People do not like dealing with their banks, and that's why a lot of times, even though they're going to get a better rate, they have to make a decision like how much better is it, because it's going to be miserable. And of course, the realtors won't even accept their offers with their pre-approvals. In most cases, they do not want to see a pre-approval, at least down the hill in Claremont. They do not want to see a pre-approval with Bank of America. You will not get the offer accepted. Some of them list do not come with a pre-approval for Bank of America on their list. It's kind of scary. That'd be Jeff Hamill, who does a lot of business in our area. So call, text. Our main line is a call number and a text number. That means that when you text the main line, weekends, nights, we have separate apps that show up. Goes to Carrot, goes to me, goes to Leslie, goes to Cody. And it also goes to a couple of people that it's coming up on the computer. So if you have a question about a loan in process and you don't want to try to reach me, because I'm doing a meeting like this for an hour and a half, and of course realtors can't wait that long. And for sure, some millennials can only wait a quarter of that time. We have it to where they can text us and we get them answers right away. Okay, because multiple people are watching over that and can call back and answer those questions right away. You want me specifically, you have my cell phone card, you text me, whatever else. The Harrison group, again, goes to all of us, including the processors. So when we start a transaction, the first thing we do is make sure that they have the Harrison group email. That way, if the processor is answering the question, the person handling insurance, concert, or whatever else will respond to you, because half the time you call me, I don't know. So the processor's a lot better and quicker to answer than I am, because they're actually in the file. They know exactly what's going on, where docs are and all that. And it cuts out the delay time of me calling and going, hey, Monica, what's going on, so I can tell them. Okay, so that's I think that's it. Is there anything great? So you guys don't run into it as much up here, but it is with the FHA loan limits and stuff. On the right hand side, that QR code is so proud of me because I always forget that stupid name of that damn thing. I had to look at her just so I could remember, because she's the one who makes fun of me all the time. QR code on the right is loan limits. So if you're all of a sudden doing something in Orange County, LA County, you've got all these goddamn loan limits. I sit in San Bernardino, I look across the street at LA. So I go from like, like up $500,000 differential on my FHA loan limits if I walk across the street. Up here, it's really just mostly your FHA versus your conventional difference, but it also has units. So it'll show on the back of the card. This is always going to be current if you save it to your phone, because that is going to be the current website that's always updating the loan limits. So as soon as the loan limits update, that QR code is the website, so it's updated automatically. The other is the straight up mortgage talk, where all the videos and all that kind of stuff. Again, you guys have this, so you can get a picture of it anytime.
I'll send all your slides out
Okay,
and an
perfect.
email out to
Awesome.
everybody.
Right. Yeah, really look at that, the difference of what payments are now at the 3.5 versus the 6.5 and the 7s and stuff like that. Especially when you're talking about second homes and things like that. Because remember, second homes didn't have those hits before, right? You guys we didn't have any problems with it. It's like almost primary residence. There was very little difference. That's kind of hammering that market a little bit. If it wasn't for the Airbnbs, and I know locals hate the short-term rentals, if it wasn't for those, I don't think a lot of people could afford second homes anymore because of the difference in rates. So it allows them to at least have a second home that they wouldn't otherwise be able to even afford. I lucky, I bought mine a long time ago, and my wife would never let anybody sleep in bed unless he knows it, so. Quite frankly, it's only like that, but real world is, there's no way I'm gonna ever be able to short-term rent at my house. We still have shoes about it. The next one. So will you allow me to short-term rent? Okay. I honestly, like, I'm very protective of neighbors and stuff like that, so I don't want to do that, and I want to be able to use it whenever I. At the end,
That is,
we don't say the end, that's it.
that's it.
Any
Thank you.
questions? I know I went through that, a lot of that quick, and I appreciate the questions. Any like questions about loans or programs or kind of what you're seeing? No question about.
Used him for 4 years. Is it Tim Harrison? That's what I thought I talked
So
about.
2-1.
He's- Yeah.
The
I'm
2-1. Any questions about the buy downs, the closing costs, any of that kind of stuff? Pretty much know it all.
Okay.
If you don't have a question now, but you think of one later,
He's
just reach out to us. You can even text us on a text us line and say, hey, I have a quick question about this. Anytime you have like a quick question, hey, somebody's saying this. Because there's so much.
That's not where it's at. Just have-
Programs.
Fire, we're very upset.
That's not the
Monica.
case.
Perfect credit next year. When she's talking. Hello. Hello.
Hi,
Hi, thank you.
do you have any questions?
No, you're the best. We know it.
Thank you.
Can I have my
Appreciate
$20 now?
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Those pastries are from down the hill. It's Suncrest Bakery. Please eat them because they're really good. Take them home, do whatever with them.
Where's
But-
that? You will bring
Two
it
bakeries. That's on the way to Mammoth and Napa.
Allison.
So whoever's not here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate meeting you all.
Allison, we want some pasties too.
Just end it.
Got muted. Do you see that? We want
Yeah.
some pasties? No.
Stop.
I'm all- Hold on, let me, my little, that little bar across the bottom. Remember the one that you were like, it
Oh,
doesn't
yeah,
go
okay,
away?
so
Like,
watch this one. I know it's gonna sound weird. That's how I was able to find it. Yeah.
oh,
There you go.
look, stop share. So I'll get rid of that. Okay, and there we go. Yeah,
Hmm.
there we
You
go.
wanted pasties? No.
I like it up here a lot better.